the UP pack on to the club in the UP pack on to the club in the UP pack on.
Well, welcome everyone to the second episode of What You've Been Up To. My name is Michael, aka Ducko, and like I've said the last time, a million other aliases out there on the internet. I am here with rs0n's Live himself, Harrison. Harrison, how you doing? What kind of hair day are you having?
I think it's pretty good. What do you think? You tell me.
I think you are definitely giving Bob Ross a run for his money this week. I think that the only question that we're going to have about sort of sustaining the current hair environment on your end is how will that do once we hit the humid season in Houston?
Oh, yeah. Or, yeah, I mean, even when it gets above 50 degrees, it's not going to. I mean, if I'm really honest with you, the hair is probably going to last about a month, if that. We've been getting a lot of this cold weather now, so it's nice. When I go out and walk the dog, I don't have to wear a hat. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, no, there's been a couple days where it starts to get up into like the 50, 60 degrees, and it's already miserable. When we hit it, I mean, there's no way I'm going to be walking around like this with in the middle of the summer. So we'll see. We'll see how much longer it lasts. It's been fun. I enjoy the it's been silly, and that, I enjoy that. But I imagine probably within the next month or two, you're going to see me with a shorter haircut that'll ride through the summer.
Well, that'll be exciting because I've seen a number of different short haircuts that have come out. So, maybe we'll get some Polymarket or some bets going around how short it'll be this time around. I think they could be pretty exciting. So
I'm thinking the Dr. Phil, right? We're going to go completely bald on top. We're going to get the horseshoe there.
Yeah,
I think I can pull it off. So
there's two that I've seen that have become popular trolls amongst the mountain biking community. You'll if you're a really good mountain biker, you might get this kind of haircut at a festival setting. One is called the cul-de-sac, and that is where you cut this part of the hair only and leave the rest.
Oh, no.
So that's the cul-de-sac. The other is called the Nutty P, which I think is what you're talking about, which looks a little bit more like Friar Tuck. So, here's what I'll say to that. I think that the only reason to get a stupid haircut is if you're celebrating a huge milestone. So if any of the viewers can think of a milestone that might be big enough to celebrate for Harrison or me, I'm down to clown, with a stupid haircut, whether that's number of subscriptions, number of views, comments, throw that down in the comments. And you never know. You might see some announcements closer to DEF CON about some stupidity that we've got coming up that you can view in person if you're there. So
I like that.
Speaking of announcements, we got so much to get into today. The main thing that I am super pumped to get into is really around this live virtual training that Harrison is going to be providing and leading February 21st. I had my date wrong at first, but that's a Saturday since a lot of us out there do have day jobs. So super pumped on that front. We're definitely going to talk more about that. The other thing we'll be talking about is I think how you can win a seat there. So there's a drawing that we're going to be talking about, right, Harrison?
Well, it's not necessarily a drawing. And actually, I don't think you and I have discussed this, have we?
We haven't.
I haven't given you the details either. I just realized that.
So hold off on those because I can't wait to hear about it. I'm going to be really excited. I'm definitely going to be attending this. The content Harrison puts out is a huge value to me. It gives me a knowledge base to continue to go back to that not only informs the techniques that I want to use, but it gives me that knowledge base. And then the community itself has been essential in providing a bit of a mirror where I can get a sense of, all right, here's where I'm at. And here's what I need more of, whether that's foundational knowledge, techniques, experience. Getting ahead of myself. There's more to come on that. I'll have some announcements on my own channel about some content around the best ways to learn stuff if you're an adult. All that said, though, we're definitely going to talk about that. We want to get into it. Quick update or mullet update. It's still there. We'll see if the mullet survives the humidity. But with that, I think where we want to go first is one of the most popular things that we did in that first segment was we talked about the news. And, I think a lot of folks out there were really interested in your perspective, Harris. So first and foremost, it was interesting. So Wiz this last week released a bug bounty masterclass. And what was interesting about that was it confused me a little bit because I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know Wiz is a cloud security company. They provide technology that tests for vulnerable configuration of cloud services. If anybody has not worked in the cloud before, you probably don't know how easy it is to, essentially basically just build a house with the press of a button, but with the press of another button, every lock is facing the outside of the house instead of the inside of the house. So it can be really easy to misconfigure things. Wiz has been essential for a lot of folks in security and getting their cloud infrastructure secured. So, the first question I had was like, why would Wiz be releasing this bug bounty masterclass? And I think that was a little bit of the confusion. As I got into it, it was clear that the researcher is really, really well known in the community. It seemed like a good way to kind of provide some resources to the InfoSec community because, when it comes to resources around how to hack a rising tide, like it's going to lift all boats. But, Harrison, I wanted to get your perspective on this and really, instead of kind of, diving into whether, what it's good for, quality, things like that. We know the researcher is top notch. We know that individual is, got a lot of good findings. For somebody who's in the community, how would you recommend that they approach this resource and what would they need to do in addition to going through that to grow in their journey in bug bounty or offensive web application testing?
Sure. And yeah, I did see the training. I mean, it looks great. I was able to watch a little bit of it, not too much. Researcher on there. Yeah, very well known. He's great. It looked to me to be, essentially a beginner's guide. If you weren't really familiar with bug bounty hunting at all, they provided a great resource to do it. I think it's, like you said, a rising tide lifts all ships. I think it's phenomenal that they did this, right? Because it's not, just like you said, it's not directly tied back into their business model, at least not in an obvious way that I can see. So in a good way, I'm forced to make the assumption that the reason they wanted to do this is because they wanted to put useful information out there into the community. By the way, Wiz is not a sponsor in any way, shape, or form, but they could be. Hint, hint.
Not yet.
Anybody's watching this from Wiz, just saying, but I want to make sure because they are a great company. I've been a customer, I really like them. But anyway, the other thing that I could say, and certainly along those lines, but for me, I've always seen bug bounty hunting as, in addition to a way to make money and everything else, it's a phenomenal teaching tool. And it can become, it's much easier to motivate people to want to learn the exploit side and that side of security and want to spend their free time putting in that extra work and everything because there is this financial incentive and kind of a side hustle and everything. So again, I'm making some assumptions, but yeah, to me, it seemed like ultimately they wanted to put something out that would help the community. And of course, in turn, as a company, that's going to help build up their brand. But that's good. That's forming those win-win situations that we're always looking for. Rapid7 used to do the same thing with Metasploit. They kept it free after they purchased it and everything, and that helped them build up their brand and get to where they are today. So, that's my best guess.
Awesome. Yeah, it seemed a bit like just an opportunity to give back to the community a little bit.
Which I love.
I do too. I would imagine that Wiz does rely on that kind of research, likely for their own benefit as well. Whether that is external in terms of cloud attack surface or whether it is just folks who, looking at the Wiz infrastructure. So, that's an area where I think you had some experience when you were running a program where you actually went out and created a bunch of content. I think a lot of the stuff that folks have watched and found benefit with, you probably produced when you were running a program on the customer side.
Yeah, I had always wanted to do a YouTube channel and always wanted to put bug bounty stuff out there. But the specific content that I created and why I made it at that time and everything, that was the impetus. That was the initial thing. We were having trouble at the time effectively identifying IDORs and access controls as part of our CI/CD pipeline. And we had, we were running 25, 30 new deployments a day. So it became, and also our application had very complex access controls and a lot of different opportunities and stuff there. So eventually we were able to go back and we, worked with an incredible architect that I still keep in touch with, who has a YouTube channel as well. But anyway, we were able to build something called the auth module that was an internal thing that made it very easy from a static code analysis perspective to identify whether or not the access controls and all that had been put into place. But before that, we were having to do it all manually, and it was taking up a huge amount of time, and we were missing things. So my solution was, well, we've got a bug bounty program. Anybody out there can go and hack. That's where my iDoors and access controls videos came from. Was, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put out an in-depth series and teach people how to do this. And we started to get reports for iDoors and access controls. Imagine that. Imagine if other companies went out there and taught the researchers exactly how they wanted them to test. Things might go a little smoother.
I feel like there's probably a masterclass worth of experience that you have in terms of how to force multiply with a program. I don't think we have time to get into it today, but there's so much that I've heard you say that is just next level thinking in terms of the benefits that you can create within an organization if you get the right people involved and you have the right elements in place for a program like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, that's nice of you to say. I do think I have some insights. I will say, though, I don't think I'm unique in that. I think there's one of me in a lot of different companies, a lot of different security teams and everything. So I think the bigger problem is I'm super loud. If I have an opinion, everybody's going to hear about it. And if I don't feel like you're listening to me, I'm going to make sure you listen to me. A lot of people, don't have, what I mean? I had to fight tooth and nail to get there, to be able to go there and say, hey, I'm going to go start a YouTube channel and teach people how to hack us. Can you imagine what the legal team said to me? So I think that also, I guess maybe speaking more to leadership that's outside of the security team and everything, I would recommend listening to the individuals that are the boots on the ground for your security team, because they probably have a lot of ideas for things like that.
Absolutely. And that's I can personally tell you, given what I do for a day job, I've talked to a lot of program owners, and you're not unique in that. Just in terms of there are a lot of sharp folks out there who are really seeing how to get the most out of it. I also will steal things that I knew you were doing if I feel like those folks have the competency, and offer them up as suggestions for program improvement too. So, again, the goal here is just to help create a safer internet and for everybody's jobs to be a little bit easier. I guess other than the hacking side, I want to highlight one thing though, which is if there's an area that I've always known that you were a really strong web app hacker, it's been in that access and IDOR control space. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and anything logic, I would say that my skill or any success that I have found comes from being able to see the bigger picture, being able to understand very, very complex systems in a way that I think, other people, I do think that that's a bit of a talent of mine, and seeing the downstream consequences of, well, you do something over here and 10 steps later, it's going to do something over there. And iDoors and access controls are very much part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, just kind of affirming that that's an area of expertise for you. I think that's something that, is important for the community to hear, especially for those getting started, that folks who are working on the application blue team side, they may have and oftentimes have the skill set to find the bugs that they're asking the community to find. What they don't have is the time, and that is where the community comes in and can really be a game changer and drive a ton of value. So wanted to make sure I called that out, because I know that that's something we've talked about before. I know that that's something that's probably top of mind for folks who are making the transition, who are looking to make a transition over into InfoSec, because it's daunting when you first get started. It feels like you have to learn everything, and the initial experience can be a bit overwhelming, and I think the folks who are able to push through that and who are able to live with the complexity, I think those folks tend to do a little bit better long term, because it's a lot. But all you got to do is just kind of pick that one chunk and you take it down, and then it's a little bit less. And you pick the next chunk and take it down, and it's a little bit less. And the thing is, when you've got an expert like Harrison on the blue team, you might be able to find something and provide value to Harrison, even though, he's got 10x the experience you do hacking. So, it is a scenario where there's value that you can bring to programs, even when you are getting that first level experience. Now, it's helpful to have a community that can be a little bit of a, kind of gate or triage, where it's like, hey, is this real? Should I report it? And I think that's where I've seen some interaction on that back and forth in the Discord, where it's like, hey, I'm on this step, but I'm stuck. So, another plug for the Discord over on Arson Live, because that is a big missing piece, I think, for a lot of people who are trying to go it alone. Like, that communal aspect can just really fast track your learning quite a bit quicker. So
yeah, to have support and everything, that's actually really I think the most important part. And that's the culture that we're really trying to cultivate there in that Discord. Is like, right, you go in, you're day one, you ask a question that's a day one question. You're not going to have people coming back and go, oh, I can't believe you didn't know this and this and that, right? It's like, I want people to, hey, come on in, man. We got you. We got you here. That's an easy answer. And we got a bunch of other resources over here, right? And you can go in the Discord and find out anybody who comes in with that kind of like smug hacker mindset. Oh, I can't believe you didn't. I jump in and have a conversation with them real quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I just want to say real quick is you said other people might be able to do that depending on their skills. I would just get rid of the word might. I don't care how long you've been testing. I don't care where you come from, anything else.
Yeah.
Even just simply having a different perspective, there's a lot of vulnerabilities that are not that technical. And there have been times where I've been looking at things some way and I'm dug into this technical stuff and I'm in the weeds and somebody comes in who's day one stuff that just mentions something and just, oh, maybe we do that. And then So doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, doesn't matter where you come from or anything, your perspective is valuable and you might be surprised how much insight you can give from the offensive side, even if you don't come from the offensive side.
Huge takeaway. Like, so important, I think, for a lot of folks out there to hear that. So, and I think this dovetails into the next news item, which is a bit of a bummer. But I think we're going to talk about this in more of a broad stroke. So I did see the news today. It looks like AWS laid off what looked like I think it was like 16,000 people. I know you've experienced, like, you've gone through the experience of sort of like corporate layoffs. I've survived a few rounds myself. So, it can be scary and it can be kind of a tumultuous time, but do you have any advice for folks who, are in that scenario right now, who are, kind of going through that or who just made it through, who are feeling nervous about it? Do you have any experience that you can share?
Yeah, I guess. It's terrible news. And it feels like we're getting a lot of these. I know that the tech earnings just came out, so people were kind of talking about it. My heart certainly goes out to anybody that's affected. Obviously, Austin too. Austin, I think, is where both of us, ultimately leave our call home. So yeah, it's really a shame to do that. And it's hard to not think about the individual effects going to have and the personal effects going to have on everything. But unfortunately, and look, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what's going to continue to happen. I think anybody that says they know what's going to happen, how AI is going to affect everything, is just making educated guesses. But ultimately, in my opinion, and it's the reason that I've made some of the recent moves that I have, and the reason I'm going the direction I have, and the reason that I'm trying to build up what I'm building up.
Yeah,
I think that there's also where we're seeing this situation where these corporate structures are no longer becoming as much of a reliable source of income and stability and everything as all these changes are happening. Mm-hmm. I think there's also an opportunity opening up where if an individual is passionate about something and has tangible skills around that thing, whatever it is, it is much more accessible now. I mean, exponentially more accessible nowadays to be able to go and build an income around that, and I mean, that's essentially what I'm doing, right? Is, I've got some bug bounty going in the YouTube and everything else and stuff, but, I don't have to hire a marketing department. I've at least to do, like, I can go in and get Canva. There's all these different SaaS things that are out there that can help support you that are really, really cost effective. So I guess that I hope that anybody who is nervous about what they're seeing, and obviously I think everybody is, I hope that they can also kind of see the potential and the opportunity there that I think a lot of people are going to seize on, to say, well, instead of doing this corporate job, well, I've always been, I'll give you a great example. We were out doing a hike the other day, and we met this guy who was foraging mushrooms. And he was a super cool guy. I mean, he looked exactly like what you think he looked like. And it's, say that in the most positive way whatsoever.
So he was wearing like a suit from like Armani and
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. but we stopped and talked to him for a little bit, and he had like a pouch voice, and he taught us. He was so passionate about it. You know what I mean? It's like taught us about, here's the mushrooms I'm getting, here's everything. And I'm sitting here having this conversation. We ended the conversation. I was like, man, you ever think about building a business around that? And I left him a business card. You know, I think that's going to happen more and more, where somebody who just spends their free time doing something that before may have just seemed like a hobby.
Yeah.
I hope that where we're going is that a lot of people are able to monetize their hobby, you know, work for themselves or form like small groups of people that are working. And ultimately, I hope it's going to land where everybody is just happier, you know, because I think that's really what it comes down to. And everything else, money, everything else that you get, it's all a conduit for happiness. You got to just find a way to do it. So, anyway, I hope, you know.
I'd agree. I definitely would agree with that. You know, and it's funny because I was talking to a friend yesterday about was just kind of talking about career ambitions, things like that, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be manager? Do you want to keep going individual contributor? And it was interesting because I was like, well, I don't really care about either of those things. There's like three main things I want to do. And I feel like I can make most of my living doing one of them and part of my living doing another one. And the other one I'm just going to keep for me.
Yep.
And that's going to be the thing that I look forward to that gets me to finish what I need to finish to get out from behind the desk and just go have a blast. And so I've started trying to think about it in terms of I am less worried about what my title is and more worried about the opportunity to work with smart, talented people who drive me to be my best. And, one of the next steps I took in that this year was this podcast with you, was having these conversations because I missed working with you. I missed having a project that, got us together. We, Harrison and I started off our relationship working together. We became really good friends through that. We've maintained communication. We've stayed in touch, but I think that the friendship has just always been a springboard where it's like, man, it's so much fun to work together. Let's go find something we can dig in on. So, that's the way that I've started to look at it. And I think one thing I will bring out of this is I didn't realize this. I was watching the CTBB podcast. Shout out to those guys. I was talking to Harrison about this before we started recording. Like the content creators in the bug bounty world, they're all doing good things and they're all bringing to bear, skills and helping folks get better at what they need to get better at to grow and, kind of in their trajectory. The CTBB guys, they're really oriented at what I would think of as kind of the top half of that skill set group. The techniques they talk about, like go listen, if you're a newbie and you go listen to the pod and you feel overwhelmed, I wouldn't be surprised because they're getting into some deep, deep stuff over there. But here's something I didn't know. And that is Joseph, he started Bug Bounty full time because he got laid off from his day job. He was already doing Bug Bounty as a side hustle. And he was able, he'd kind of built that up and was able to go full time. So, it was an opportunity exactly like you're talking about, where something that was a hobby side hustle for him became the main thing. And, he's one of the top hackers that there is now, and he might have always been before, but I don't know that he would have received that feedback or would have had the opportunity to develop the same way without, what looked at the beginning, I'm sure, like a very scary and horrid thing. So maybe, hopefully before too long, we might get the chance to ask him. But, regardless, if you find yourself in one of those opportunities, the thing that's always helped me the most with that is just remembering this is temporary. I'm not going to feel this way forever. It's not going to be this way forever. And the thing that I've been able to fall back on time and time again when I've needed help professionally has been the people like Harrison, like a number of other folks who have really championed me and always made it clear that they care how I'm doing, So end of the day, I feel like it just kind of comes back to the people in your life and the folks that you want to build something with. So
100%, man. I could not agree more.
sweet. Well, I'm dying to get to the announcement to talk about the upcoming live training. We got one more news item I wanted to chat about before we get there. So this last week, HackerOne announced they're releasing agentic offensive testing, agentic offensive security. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, there's a number of companies out there right now, like Harrison said, I think before we started recording, all of them, who are basically releasing some sort of agentic application of offensive security testing. AWS released their security agent. You see Claude on some of the frontier models also developing these sorts of things. So there is just this sort of like agentic uprising happening right now. Expo was one of the first platforms that got a bunch of press because they were dogfooding their platform on HackerOne. So, kind of knowing all of that and knowing that like AI is kind of coming for us, so to speak. I wanted to ask you, Harrison, not so much about like your take on where all that fits, but what does that mean for researchers, for bug bounty hunters out there with the rise of agentic? What are things that they need to focus on now more maybe than they were focusing on before in terms of developing themselves as a well-rounded researcher?
Yeah. And I started to just make a joke and say, "Oh, it's going to put us out of a job, show over, done." But yeah, of course it won't. Look, I talk about this all the time. If you watch my videos and everything, do kind of my live stream stuff, AI systems are very good at injection attacks. I mean, it's very. I feel like there's a lot more weight being put into the fact that there's AI behind this, when ultimately the process of the way these systems work is not really any different than any other DAS scanner or any security scanner. It's you're sending HTTP requests with specific payloads and you are evaluating the responses. The big change is that you now have this AI engine that it's not just a regex check. It's not just a string check. It's not, you know what I mean? So there's a bit more evaluation going on the back end, but that's it. It doesn't change the fact that DAS scanners and automated scanners are not as adept at doing things like IDORs and access controls and business logic and everything, because first of all, it's a lot more complex. There's a lot more moving pieces, and that's always kind of the critical thing behind it. But then also, you need context within the application. You can't, if I'm taking a scanner and I go scan Grammarly for their different access controls and everything and what they're allowed to access and what they're not. Every application has its own way of identifying the client. Every application has its own access controls and things you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And if the AI doesn't have that context, then it's not going to be able to do it. And even if it does have that context, actually, I shouldn't have said context because I'm moving to talking about context window. But if it's not aware of those things, then it's not going to be able to identify that there's an issue in the first place. And then again, AI systems have a context window. That is one of the most important things when it comes to, it just determines how much information they can hold in their head at one time, just kind of like a human being. And as applications continue to get more and more complex, we're seeing kind of two things at the same time. Like, people were talking about the evolution of all these AI systems and everything, but they're talking about it as if the applications they're scanning are not changing. They're talking about it like there's still a monolith written in PHP, and everything's changing at the same time. Where these AI systems are not very adept at finding vulnerabilities in AI systems. And a lot of applications are cloud infrastructure, bunch of API calls, and a bunch of AI systems. It's going to continue to go that way. So, I actually was talking about this the other day with our community on the Discord, but because they were asking me something similar. You don't aim at where the target is, aim at where the target's going. If you're learning bug bounty hunting, if you're coming in and it's early in your process, earlier in your career, don't learn things that are working 4 years ago. because they're probably not like, cross-site scripting is becoming more and more difficult. I'm not saying don't learn it, don't look at it, but don't prioritize that. Prioritize, the logic vulnerabilities, the downstream effects of, twisting this service one way and then 10 steps down it does this. Prioritize learning the vulnerabilities that the AI systems have. Figure out how to jailbreak don't just learn prompt injection, figure out how to jailbreak the prompt and then figure out what you can do with it. How can you weaponize a RAG system? How can you get access to an MCP server and get it to run tools it's not supposed to run? Do they even have authentication on the MCP server?
Right.
Every company out there is just running as fast as they can to roll these systems out. Mm-hmm. That's where your vulnerabilities are. That's where you're aiming. You're not aiming at these code injection and remote code execution and everything. That's, some of them, sure, but most applications, anyway, I'll talk about this forever. You got to aim where it's going, where the industry is going, not where we're at today, and especially not where we were at a couple years ago.
Harrison, if you put your program management hat on for a side, managing a bug bounty program, when you were managing one, what were, early on, what were things that you would see in a report or in communication that indicated to you that this individual might be a good anchor hacker in a program?
Yeah, so we certainly had that. Yeah, and I think that's really important for people to know. I think especially beginners don't realize that is that a lot of times hackers, bug bounty hunters, researchers, whatever you want to call them, they will get dug into a program or a certain couple programs, and they get to know everything about it, and they know what looks right, they know what looks wrong, and they know their deployments. Right? It really is like you say, like you become a member of the team there. So we saw the same thing happen. So it starts, from. In fact, maybe this is interesting from launching a bug bounty program. I'll tell you, you kind of launch it and then you start getting things coming from everywhere. First of all, when a new program launches, everybody jumps on it. Yeah. So you just get a bunch of noise initially and you kind of start wading through the noise and everything.
Yeah.
And, obviously, like, I don't know if there's any one thing in a report that would tell me this individual is somebody, again, the tone, the level of tech, but it's all the stuff that would go into writing a good report anyway. Maybe being able, I don't think this was as important for us because we were a highly technical team, but I think being able to tell a good story is also good, which that's rule for life, right? Everything is storytelling. So being able to tell a good story around the vuln, I think is very successful. But yeah, it really is that every bug bounty report that you get as a program owner, you start testing the waters as well. And you say, okay, who is this person? Where do they come from? What are their skills and everything? And over time, once they send a couple good reports, and that's really it. Like once you get one or two good reports, it's all smooth sailing from there. Mm-hmm. Because then it's now we know, okay, this person has it. Because you get so many, what we call beg bounties and so many just like they copied over a bunch of stuff and they're trying to scare you and stuff. So, and maybe that's another thing is like when a report doesn't over exaggerate the impact.
Right.
That to me is something that I noticed immediately, right? If they're sending in, it's like, here's we're able to leak this data, and then there's a lot of information about, here's what this data is, here's how it can impact you. And it's a 4.3, medium.
Yeah.
Oh, this person actually, whereas, oh, this is critical because I found this thing and did you know about a .robots.txt and how much this can destroy you because I can use this to get a SQL injection or remote code execution? Money, please.
Yeah.
Money, please.
Okay. Well, it's helpful to know that's why you didn't accept that report that I submitted.
Well done. Well done, my friend.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because it's pretty common for companies who roll their own disclosure programs to get a lot of, a lot of sort of randos on the internet trying to beg bounty them into money. And the folks who don't roll it through a platform, oftentimes they wind up going to a platform because their, C-suite is tired of getting email blasts from these randos on the internet telling them they know how to hack their company.
Yeah.
So there's definite benefit, I think, to the structure and then to some of some of the elements you can kind of offload when you do kind of forge those partnerships. So it's interesting to hear the perspective that, that even within the platform, you're definitely seeing those sorts of things. So it is still providing, I think, the highest impact findings that companies get reported to them pretty typically. Like most of the folks out there who run bug bounty programs say they're not getting that kind of feedback really anywhere else. And, so it's, I think, essential that there are going to be folks in the future moving forward who can provide that value and can get out there. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, So, but we did want to talk through that a little bit and just kind of, I guess, pull back the veil for any beginners or noobs out there who are looking at this as a potential career vector. I think something else that you've talked about, Harrison, that I've also been talking to folks about is just the benefits of bug bounty as a way in to an AppSec career, where you're not even just trying to be a bug hunter full time, AI is not really helping with this because, for every agent that comes out to test code, there's 32 that are out there, 32 million that are out there vibe coding, right? Or producing code. And those agents are producing quite a bit of vulnerabilities because, go figure, they were trained on the code that's on the internet that's full of vulnerabilities. So there's still going to be a huge need for AppSec professionals, and probably even more so. You've talked about kind of the myth of the skills gap. I think for anybody who hadn't heard it from you before, what's the benefit of sort of coming into AppSec from bug bounty?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say the benefit of it is, gosh, there's so many. Because there's so many aspects of things outside of just identifying vulnerabilities that if you do bug bounty hunting right and you do it for a while and you find some level of success, it's going to translate to an application security job. And it's a lot of stuff that people don't think about. First of all, like the recon and the testing and everything, that's obvious, being able to do it. It really comes from the reporting and the conversation with the company after that. Because if you're working on an AppSec team, you have to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But you're not selling to a triage. You're selling your vulnerabilities to the developers and to the team, right? You've got to be able to articulate to them why the risk posed by this vulnerability is so much so that they should stop what they're doing, stop building all of these other pieces that are going to bring the company money, and instead mitigate this risk.
Yeah.
And so the process of writing a report and writing it out in a way, again, like I said, to be able to tell a story and to be able to articulate that risk, that's huge. The process of having a conversation with the triager and with the companies. I mean, that's, if you're the type of person that's a bug bounty hunter and somebody comes back and says they don't like it and you get upset, you're probably not going to last very long at a blue team job. That's a big part of it. So I think all of those, people don't see building up your GitHub profile by building out automation and being able to demonstrate to hiring managers, which I was a hiring manager. And this was one of the first questions I asked me. Let me see your GitHub. Show me how you have solved security related problems with automation. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be hugely technical. And by the way, this was before AI that I used to ask that. Now it's a whole different world. But yeah, you don't have to do anything complex. It's just about understanding the risk and articulating the risk. Do you really understand what a cross-site scripting is and how it's attacked? Or do you just understand how to pop an alert and you feel like every time you pop an alert, somebody needs to pay you? Simple as that.
Totally fair. Yeah, it's, you outlined a few of the skills that come with it, and I think just kind of dovetailing this back, it's that combination of the human element of those soft skills where one, you have a thickness in your skin or at least a level of detachment where it's not that difficult for, you to be able to take feedback. I mean, getting good at taking feedback is probably the number one skill that can help you excel in any environment, let alone kind of a corporate environment. So being able to take feedback and being able to converse around that feedback and process it in a way where you're not relying on the person giving it to you to make you feel better if it hurts your feelings. You know, like I think those elements are huge. That can get into more of the community aspect, because the fact of the matter is like, you know, I think it'd be a lot more productive for newbies to basically hit up a friend and just unload their grief about the bug bounty report getting rejected, or, you know, the AppSec manager said something mean, and then go back and say, hey, thanks for the feedback. You know, because the only appropriate response when somebody gives you feedback is thank you. If you trust that person and you value their opinion, you take it. If you don't like them, then you just say thank you and you don't do anything about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think something that is really important that maybe isn't clearly stated to enough people, you know, whether in the corporate world or not, is assuming positive intent. Yeah. And that is something that I think throughout your life is really, you know, you show me somebody who's always angry, who's always grouchy, who's always going, I'm going to show somebody who assumes negative intent from every single interaction that they have.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, you know, I think that the benefit of the doubt, assume positive intent, you know, until somebody proves you otherwise. And then, you know, just understanding how to respond to folks in a way that, you know, communicates to them that you value them and that you understand where they're coming from. You know, that can be huge. You know, I think you and I are both a big fan of never split the difference, and the sort of advice that comes out of that, where, you know, there are a handful of tools that the minute you learn them and start using them, they can really be a game changer. And, you know, it's a lot easier not to be upset about your report getting rejected if you're not just kind of like upset because you're having trouble interacting with everybody in the world, you know? And I mean, I think that you know, if it's not obvious from neurodiversity corner over here, a lot of us in the InfoSec community have some quirks and are a little bit, you know, a little bit off. So, you know, but it's a big part of it. And, you know, it's something that there are a lot of skills and a lot of intangibles that you can get, I think, from going at it this route that can really pay off in the long run, because, you know, you'll come in with an understanding of how to add value, and you'll already have some of the prerequisite skills, you know? So that's, I think, you know, for us, I think that's part of why we're doing what we're doing, is just to make sure that folks see an open door and an inroad, whether you've been hit by a layoff and are looking to pivot and transition, whether, you know, you're just tired of doing what you've been doing and want to try something different. You know, I've jumped from a career as a professional musician over into InfoSec because I just wanted to use my brain in a different way. You know, it was an interesting transition. And, you know, I think the thing that surprised me the most was when I got over into InfoSec, it was a bunch of weirdos like I hung out with in music, but it was also, yeah, exactly. But it was also a bunch of people who were insanely creative.
Yep.
You know, and it was just that kind of sense that I found my people on that side of the fence. So everybody makes transitions for different reasons. I know, you know, you came out of the Army and basically went straight into the corporate world, which is probably, I mean, I guarantee there's some stories there for an after hours episode. So, but we have been teasing this announcement now for quite a while. So I figured this would be a good chance to around the corner and get into Harrison, what you been up to?
That's a good question. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start there. Obviously, as we mentioned before, February 21st, Saturday, February 21st, I'm going to be hosting the first of my, the first iteration, I guess, the first time that I'm doing it, my bug bounty hunting workshop that I'm calling the Bug Bounty Launchpad. I'm going to have a series of Launchpad live trainings. Yep. Actually, the next one that I'm going to be doing after the bug bounty one is going to be using bug bounties to transition to a career in AppSec. So, and I know you didn't know that. That's why I love it. Again, I love when it happens naturally.
Yeah.
So there were 50 tickets available, 50 tickets available for this training on February 21st. As of today, there are 6. So if anybody else that's watching this, and who knows by the time this comes out, it's going to take us a couple days to put it together. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go down there. If you want to purchase a ticket and guarantee your spot there at my bug bounty workshop, it's going to be a 9-hour workshop. There are 5 total sessions. What is it? 3 1-hour sessions and 2 2-hour sessions, along with 2 1-hour Q&A sessions all together. So I'm going to be right in front of you for 9 hours that entire day. We're going to go from start to finish. We're going to go from what is a bug bounty program to submitting a good report. We're going to cover, you were talking about NAHAMSEC and the way he was describing these different, and this is something I think a lot of people don't articulate. He was describing, well, most of the time I spend and get most of my money staying on this one program, but then when I want to learn something new, I try everything. Those are what are called hunting styles that I think are hunting strategies. And so my training is going to go through 4 distinct hunting strategies. Everything that I'm teaching, all the vulnerabilities, are within the context of that hunting strategy. And 2 of them are the ones we talked about with the NAHAMSEC. That's your SaaS deep dive and your what I call earn while you learn, which is, you do your research, you go across everything. So, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think teaching, because you're still going to learn IDORs and access controls. You're still going to learn account takeovers. You're going to learn business logic, like all that stuff. But I'm teaching it within the context of the hunting strategy to where it makes the most sense. Yeah. So instead of just learning a bunch of different vulnerabilities and then tossing you out there and say, go figure it out. It's like, no, here are 4 different plans that you can execute. Here's the benefit and the challenges of each one. Here's how I would do it if I'm starting. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can do it however you want, focus however you want. But everything is going to be taught within the context of those strategies. And I think that is really going to be what sets this training apart. It's what I've really tried to build as something that I just haven't seen really described in this way out in the community. So anyway, as I said, 50 tickets down to 6. Who knows what it'll be when it comes here, but I have 5 free tickets that I'm going to be, actually I have several free tickets I'm going to be giving. There's a few different ways you're going to be able to win, but today the one that we are announcing is I'm giving away 5 free tickets to say, I guess really anyway, it's open to anyone. It's open to anyone. Let me kind of say that. Okay. So the way that you enter, as we mentioned many times, I have a Discord server. I'm very excited to announce that as of yesterday, we now have over 1,000 members on that Discord server in less than a month and a half. We are now a public server that can go be searched. That's a milestone that every server tries to go. We did it like that. I'm super happy. Awesome. In that server, we have several different public text and forum channels where people can go and talk and collaborate and do all that. There is a new forum channel that a few people have seen. It'll be in there now, created a couple days ago, called Bug Bounty Tips. The way that you enter this contest is you join the Discord and you leave a tip in that Bug Bounty Tip section. There is no limit to the number of tips that you can leave. Every single tip that you leave is an opportunity to win. So what I'm going to do is, after about a week and a half here, so I'm trying to think of when this comes out, because it's going to be, today's Friday that we're recording this, going to be 2 weeks, I think, from today that I'll go and announce the actual winners. I'm going to read through every single one of those tips, and I'm going to find the 5 that I believe are the most helpful, specifically for beginners and people that are kind of growing there, but obviously leave anything that you want. And those individuals are going to win a free ticket to my workshop. Now, if you have already purchased a ticket to my workshop, and you enter and do this as well, and I'm not going to cross-reference it. I don't have time. I don't have time to cross-reference out. So if you've already purchased a ticket and you were one of the individuals that has won, then obviously you still get the ticket that you've got there. I'm going to give you a 2-hour in-person follow-up tutoring session to where we can get into the nitty-gritty, the deep, right? So after the workshop, you come back and you will have a 2-hour live session with me where we can dig into exactly what it is. I'm going to get you started there. So if you've already purchased your ticket, there's still motivation to go in there and do it. But yeah, so the tips don't need to be very technical. They don't need to be you don't need to have a lot of experience or anything for it. In fact, a lot of the best tips that I've seen have been ones that have come from people that are newer in their journey and are just telling people what mistakes they made, and what they wish that, and like, oh, I just kind of learned this and everything. So a lot of them can be, a lot of the most valuable ones can be like process related, or, it doesn't have to be highly technical. So, yeah, so anybody who's watching this, I'll, well, really, this is probably gonna be the only announcement, and I'll bring everybody back to here and, but yeah, so, you go join the Discord if you're not already there. I'll put a link down in the description. You can find the bug bounty tips forum and leave as many as you want. I'm going to read every single one of them. I'm going to pick the top 5, and those top 5 people are going to read or win a free ticket to my workshop.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think you pointed out something that is, you should keep in mind if you're hearing this, you are a beginner, you want to go to the workshop. Like, I mean, well, like, I don't have any tips to give. Well, what's the best tip you've received?
Sure.
Let's throw that in there, because that's likely what a lot of other folks need to hear, and you never know. So, but it's so cool. I know I'm really looking forward to it. Something that always helped me in the past was, I mean, you and I used to get together on Wednesdays. I mean, and it's funny too, because like, as you were talking about the bug bounty workshop that you've put together, whenever I've been successful in my life, I backwards plan. You start with kind of the outcome you want, and then you work backwards towards that. And so starting within that strategy and then framing up the way that you would perform different tasks you need to within that strategy, I think that's hugely helpful. But I mean, God, I couldn't help but think of, I think one of the first bug bounty courses that you ever showed me, like, it was, you had to download like an app on Android or something to even watch it.
Yes, I remember that one. I forgot about that. Who did that? Was that?
I don't even know who did that, but I'm pretty sure it involved examples on live targets.
Maybe. I genuinely forgot about that until you said it. Yeah, I almost want to say it was Hackersploit that did it, but I know it wasn't him. I know it wasn't him, but it was somebody similar to that. But yeah, I remember that, and it was only on Android. Yeah. So I was the only one that could get it. I was the only one with an Android. Everybody else had all your Apple stuff, and I'm over here with my Android like, I got bug bounty stuff.
It was so great. But I mean, it's just so funny because like that, thinking back, it was like basically there was that. And then I think there were some other sites that you could go learn to, do sort of like web app pen testing and stuff, but nothing like, what's available now.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's just like, it's going to be so helpful for folks not to have to just learn a bunch of vulns and then kind of figure out how to package those into a strategy and learn all of that by trial and error. Being able to transmit that knowledge is huge. I think that the internet's going to be a safer place because of it. And I am personally really looking forward to it. So, the crazy thing is like, I think that, so last week you took the week off and went to recharge. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like what'd you get up to? And, what do you do when it's time to recharge and when you need to disconnect?
I feel like the right answer is I don't remember what I did, but that's not true. That's not true. Ask me in my early 20s, maybe that'd be my answer.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, obviously, this. I love fishing. I love getting out in nature. I love getting. Look, I spend all this time in front of computers and everything. So when in my free time, I don't want to be in front of a screen at all. So no, it was great. Went down with a couple buddies to Galveston, Texas, place called the San Luis Pass there, which again, I know I used to live there for a little while.
Yep.
Started fire on the beach, went out, we did fishing. We didn't catch a lot the first night, but we ended up catching more the second night. And then we did a deep sea fishing day. So we went out on a boat and ended up meeting a couple guys there that had come up from Mexico. And so we had a blast out there on the boat. We were fishing. We caught several reds. We had like 3 or 4 reds that came in, one black drum, and one dude caught, filleted, and later cooked and we ate a stingray.
No way.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, I love that we haven't talked about this.
Yeah.
So we pulled it up and it was stingray on there, and we were like, oh, throw it back. He's like, no. Again, one of the dudes from Mexico, man, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
totally. So he kind of put it in there and everything, and when we got back, there was they have those like clean areas that you can clean the fish and everything up on the docks and stuff. So we got there and he pulled that thing out and he knew how to clean it and brought up got like little fillets and everything. And we cooked it over the fire with the other fish and just sat there drinking beer and talking and telling stories and everything on it. It was a blast, man. The weather was nice and warm, when I was down there. It was before this freeze kind of came through. So it was great, man. Spent 4 days down there and then came back and just kind of hung out around the house, kind of you also want to spend your time off, at least I do, getting all the stuff done that you don't have time for, So I did that, just kind of had some chill days, and that was it, I mean, you know me, after about 5 or 6 days, if I'm not doing any bug bounty hunting, I get itchy, I'm ready to go. So that's where I was at.
Yeah, I think we're similar in that, in the sense that I love working really, really hard and pushing hard, and especially when I know I've got a week coming up. So like end of next month, we're going up to do some skiing up in Winter Park. We're going up, like, it's a friend's birthday weekend, so there's a bunch of friends are coming up, so going to be a blast. But basically, I know I'm looking forward to that, and so typically when I have something like that coming up, I'll stack a little extra on the calendar, especially in the week leading up, and just go as hard as I can, knowing that there's like a finish line where I got to be done. And, I'm going to get to just unwind, relax, just let all, for some reason, like it's crazy because I think you're probably one of the only other people I know who would like this, but I think for both of us, like the ocean or the mountains melts my stress away. It doesn't matter which one, but both of them have that same effect where, like, I show up carrying a bunch of stuff and it's just gone the minute I, step out and I'm seeing the mountain, or, I'm on the beach. So
absolutely,
so having that kind of release valve is essential. So, I know there was a lot you were doing leading up to it. We got the workshop, we hit on that, be sure to jump in the Discord server, Bug Bounty Tips. That's how you can enter to win a ticket. So outside of that, is there anything that you've done in the last, 5 days that you that you want to highlight, talk about, to let anybody know, like any new resources that you're working on that are close to release or that have been released?
Sure. Yeah. So I think there's a few things that I definitely want to cover here. One is, I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if you've seen this announcement in the Discord or anything yet. Maybe you do. But for anybody who doesn't know, I want to kind of put this out here as well. Earlier in the week, I probably made my first significant pivot since I really started to, go towards running my own company and everything. So initially, I was doing, we had the two different levels of memberships. You had to support my work at the $2.99, and then you had the partner level, which was a little higher. And everybody had access to the members only videos. So we're getting down to January is my first real month being in business. And so what I did was sat down and looked back and said, okay, where did I spend my time? How much, of time did I spend on these different activities? And then what was the return on investment for that? What was the revenues coming in? What was the benefit to the community? Right. Money's not as important as that, but so I have made the decision that I'm going to move away from the members only videos, and I'm going to be kind of sunsetting that $2.99 support my work setting there. We're going to keep the partner. I'm going to start focusing a lot more on live experiences, because that really seems to be what people want, what people appreciate. I think the videos are good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it really just, I'd say I probably spend about 35% of my time creating those members only videos. And I think that my time could be better allocated. And so the support my work at $2.99 is going to be going away over the next month. If you just personnel, you still have access to it. I'm slowly rolling out my members only videos, just moving them to public videos. And then I'm just going to do public videos kind of moving forward. And again, focusing more on live experiences for the partners, which we've actually got our next one on Sunday. No reason to plug it.
It's on the calendar.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, we found a bug in like the first 20 minutes the last time. And
first 5.
It didn't take long. It didn't take, because we're free to do it, right? And so that's what I think. I think the live experiences, these live hunting sessions and everything, where you could be a little more free to really dig into the vulnerabilities and everything. People seem to be really excited about that. I really enjoy it as well. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably won't be doing as many YouTube videos for right now while I get ready for the framework. The workshop. I've got so many different things, because the framework's another thing I've been working on and we talked about, but yeah, so over the month of February, my main focus is going to be, making sure that I've got everything ready for that workshop. I've also been doing a lot more of my own bug bounty hunting, which is obviously, one benefit of it is financially for me, so I can make sure and keep everything going. But the other side of it is I really have been doing like mostly research and mostly new stuff. Been learning a lot of things about mobile testing and things like that. So I'm going to bring all that back to the community as well. So yeah, still working to find the balance. As I mentioned in the announcement to this, right, like pivots like this are very common in the early days of a business. You go and try something. I had some numbers in my head when I initially did that to say, hey, if we get to this point, it makes sense to continue investing this much time. And that's not where we got. So, again, you pivot and kind of see what it is. That just means that that's not exactly what people are looking for. And again, I think these live experiences, live hunting sessions, live sessions where people can come in and I can help form a group, things like that, help, just doing Q&A sessions and stuff. I think that's going to be the future of a lot of the content that I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, I love that because I think that's a lot of the value, because you've got, like, the thing is you've got a really good foundation and a really good catalog of videos out there in terms of that, provide both the foundational understanding, the thing you need, that'll kind of, you can build on, that you can start applying techniques on top of, there's like, you've kind of covered it. I remember one time I think I texted you a question, like, dude, I made a video on that. I'm like, damn, I know. Yeah, I know.
I don't know if I was quite that direct. I probably was like, oh, have you checked out?
No, you actually, the way that you responded, where you're like, no, not normally, and then kind of like gave me like kind of about a sentence teaser, and then said, but I actually explained this in this video.
Okay,
and
good.
Yeah, no, but which was really helpful, and I felt like such a tool, because like I knew that you did that, and just but then like. Well, but everybody gets a few of those, I feel like, so.
Oh, you also, I mean, there's so much stuff you don't know what you know. I mean, I certainly hope I wasn't a jerk. But
no, you've actually never been a jerk with me. Like, I think you're maybe in a category of maybe 1 out of 1.
Well, let me tell you what. I'll tell you what I need. Maybe I need like a search system for, like, or I need like an AI thing where I feed it all of the transcripts of my videos, and then and then you can ask it a question. It'll say, "Arson answered that in this video at this time." So that would actually be cool. I was joking at first, but now it's kind of a good idea.
Well, I mean, the minute you said that, there was a video I caught a while back that was just how to build a second brain. And what you do is basically you kind of figure out what your input needs to be. In this case, like, I think the suggested input was just text in Slack, like writing yourself a note. And then basically that goes into, I think, either like a Lapier or, kind of like name your automation framework into a pipeline that then gets interpreted by an LLM and then gets deposited into a Notion database. There's no reason that, you couldn't basically just take the transcript of your videos, push those through an LLM, and then have that populate a database that provides sort of like an index, almost, like the Dewey Decimal System for Arson Live. So
I tell you what, I get probably between LinkedIn and Discord and everywhere else now, I probably get 50 or more DMs a week with just like random questions. So if I could just start linking them over to ask arsonsecondbrain.com or something like that, and just I always say this: if I had the time to help everybody, I would. I really wish I could, but yeah.
It's funny because, like, you really come alive when you're helping and when you're giving back, and what I love is hearing about this transition that you're making with the business. It's about that. Because you found where folks are getting the most value. There's still going to be videos coming out that folks can access that are part of this. But the real value that you're finding is in that connection piece, and in, providing an environment where it's less daunting to go get the experience that you need, because you're not going to find vulnerabilities on real targets unless you hack on real targets,
100%. Yeah. And I think I kind of had that realization as well, that like, that business model is further away from the original goal that I had. That is taking valuable content. Now, my goal was to have that content just be about making money. Yeah. And but I don't think I executed that in the way that I initially had that, which again is okay. So the first members only video is out now. I'll probably just be rolling them out through the month. So if you wanted to see them, they're coming.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. So I think outside of that, I did. I was going to tell you just kind of personal experience. I had so much fun with the kind of latest iteration of the framework where I could access it remotely. I did not throw it on a VPS because whenever I think about doing that, I always worry about traffic charges. Just because of all the outbound traffic going out. That's why I just always host it on a local machine. But I just, I had a. I think what I liked about it was the fact that if I needed to go, if I wanted to go do something in Cali, then I could just have it running natively on Docker desktop on my machine, and then I could just jump over into Kali, and I could access it remotely.
Sure.
Even between just kind of like VM windows and stuff. And so, thank you for all the hard work that you put into to make even just that stupid simple little workflow easier. And other thing I'm excited about with that too is I got a friend coming over to hack this weekend, and basically I was just going to throw the framework up and then, just kind of have that accessed up on one spot, and we can both access it and work from the same sort of recon results. And, just kind of go from there. So very, very cool stuff on that front. Have you been hearing about other ways that folks have been taking advantage of some of the new updates you put in there?
It's most of what you said, people being able to use it. I think a lot of people have, different ideas for the way they want to use it. But I'm very glad that we did that. That seems to have solved an issue for a lot of people. I'm kind of focused on the new updates. So that's actually what I was doing today a little bit too. There's a lot of new things that are coming. A lot of it is I'm building out the URL workflow that has, kind of been in development for a little while. I've done some major improvements to the metadata scan. You can now choose what different tools run. It's a lot more stable. You can stop the scan after it's running because that's the one that can take a long time. Yeah. It does not do Katana and FFUF anymore by default. You have to enable that if you want to do it, which those are the ones that take much longer to run. So I think that experience is going to be a lot better there. Again, just being able to stop the scan too is huge. You just press the button again, stops the scan. That code was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but that's fine. Got everything sorted out there. What I'm probably most excited about, and I want you to take this with a little grain of salt, because I literally just kind of had this idea a couple hours ago and started playing around with it, but it seems like it's going to work. For the URL scans, you go in, and the goal of the URL workflow is to go from a specific URL, and at the end, all the endpoints, all the parameters, all the possible attack vectors of that. Crawling is very, very difficult. Automated crawling is very, very difficult. There's a lot of different use cases. So we have multiple different tools in there, and I'm processing it as well. But what I was playing around with, and it seems like this is going to work, and I think this is probably going to be the future of kind of where this tool is going. I think there's going to be a browser extension involved. So what it seems like I can do, and the proof of concept that I built out today seems to be working well, is we can have a separate browser extension that comes in and points to the framework. All you got to do is point it to the framework. Yeah. After that, you manually crawl the app however you want, and it is constantly feeding data from your requests, responses from the DOM and everything back into the framework. And so the first step is you're going to go through and manually crawl everything. You're going to get the feel for the app like you would as well. But while you are doing that, my framework is starting to build up data and build up information about that target, so that when you come back and move back to the framework afterwards, you have all that waiting for you. It can go right into the Stride threat model, just like how it goes through there. Yeah. Then you run the automated tools to supplement it. Then you do brute forcing to supplement it. Then you pull it together and go with that. So again, there are a few technical challenges that I got to get sorted out. I'll also have to actually get it up in like the browser extension thing, the store, so you can get it down. That'll probably be a V2, but yeah, I think it's going to work really well, and I don't think there's a lot that's out there, at least not within this context, that does the same thing.
No. I like all the tools for this are typically just run individually or as wrappers, and folks have their different preferences. And even in we were talking about earlier about the WYBUT class. It's the really similar to, what you would have learned back in the day, I think still can actually on hackinghub.io, where, you basically just learn how to iterate through doing reconnaissance. But the thing is again, what your tool and your framework is providing is it's providing sort of a pointer towards the end result. It's starting with the end in mind. and it's helping people learn. That's the other thing that's just like, hugely helpful is the biggest thing that that you need from a tool, if you're not going to build it yourself, is you need to know what it's doing so you can understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, you can't really validate the output.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to validate the output of what you're finding to know if it's working right. So, just having the educational elements in there, it's hugely helpful. And I think that, what's really nice about it too is it doesn't preclude you from using the other tools, understanding how those work, but then seeing how the results are just kind of pre-populating. And I think, especially for folks who are, hacking with a full-time job, basically, I think that can be a real game changer because, it's like, I'm pumped because tonight I'm going to, fire up a fresh install of the framework, and I'm going to get it going on a new target. And, that's what I'm going to hack on this weekend.
Yep.
Because, it's funny. I want to keep it fresh. I've been really, I've somehow managed to get up 2 hours before work every day since the 5th of July and hack, right up until about 30 minutes before I need to start my day. And I've been loving that. I've been loving the progress I'm seeing because, it's helping me get to a point where it feels a bit more like plays I know, and not like I'm trying to remember how to do things constantly. The techniques are kind of like they're coming in. And what I like about it too is even when you don't, find a vuln, or when you don't see something come back the way it shouldn't, you still do get a different response. You get a different look at the application that you're testing. And it gives you a knowledge base that, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is as I continue to build my own technique, I'm going to be able to come back to that and say, oh, I need to try this technique on this app now because it's heavy client side. They store the JWAT in local storage, and it accepts iframes, that kind of thing, where it's like, hey, I know a new thing. I got to come back and try that. So that's what's been, kind of hugely helpful is to be able to bake that in. I think that the, surge element of being able to get out on a Sunday or Saturday and spend 9 hours kind of going through and upskilling, I think that's going to be hugely helpful too, but being able to take your framework, have it run overnight, and then get up and the targets are there. So I'm not starting recon in the morning, or more than likely what would happen is I'd start it at night and it would fail for some reason. And I wouldn't have anything to, hack on first thing, so it's been like that piece of it for the part-timers out here. Like that's been a huge help. And it's made, it's been part of a few changes that I made kind of beginning of the year that have made the whole thing feel a lot more attainable. We were talking, I think before we got going, like I never had put this together, but when I was a pro musician, basically, like I probably did spend more than 10,000 hours building that skill set and getting to a point where I could say that, I was, worth the money and, would get hired pretty often. But it's because I put in the time, and I didn't have a full-time job when I was putting the time. I was really lucky and was able to string together enough gigs where I was kind of getting paid as I learned,
Yep.
Same thing is applicable with bug bounty, but I've also got to remind myself that, I've got 2 to 4 hours a day, maybe 4 days a week. Otherwise my brain is mush, so you got to take it off in in chunks you can bite off, but finding the right tools that can help support you and build that scaffolding and get you there is, I think, one of the keys to being successful if you're on a journey like I am and you're just trying to upskill and continue to get better and better. So
that's great. That's great. I'm glad. I mean, that's certainly my goal, in putting out the frameworks. Great to hear that you're having that experience. I hope most people are as well. I mean, it's again, everything that I'm doing, the content that I'm putting out, the tools that I'm building, it's all the stuff that I wish I had when I was starting. It's really as simple as that. When I think about, starting to do something and think about what it needs to be, that's the goalpost. And it's been very helpful to have that too, because obviously you get pulled in so many different directions for so many things. So always try to kind of keep that as the North Star that I'm moving towards.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I feel like we covered a ton today. We're going to have quite a bit to go off of. Is um, anything that we missed? Anything that you got coming up, or that you've been working on that you wanted to highlight? Before we get into the lightning round.
I think we hit on the major things again. Main focus, working on the framework, getting everything ready for the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my own bug hunting. Maybe just, I mean, again,
Actually, that's something I do want to ask a little bit about. So you're back to full-time bug hunting. You're doing your own bug hunting.
I mean, I got like 3 full-time jobs. Or building the framework's full-time job.
Exactly.
Running the Discord's kind of full-time. So yeah, but as much free time as I get, I've been doing it, really enjoying it.
Have you? Okay, so like I think this would probably be interesting for folks to hear. Like your experience, because you've been a full-time bug hunter before. You're back to it's one of your 3 full-time jobs. Have you noticed a difference in the bug bounty world, between the last time you were doing it to this time?
Yeah.
What are some trends like, that you're noticing that's a little bit different, or, that would be helpful, I think, for listeners to know about, just from your perspective as a bug hunter now?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, because it's been about 4 or 5 years since I've done this as a full-time job, and it feels completely different. It really does. I mean, I really do feel like I'm starting back from day one. And part of that is that the private programs that I had access to, right, aren't really going anymore. If they are, there's not much there. But right. So I've done all my new accounts and everything. But I mean, it just goes back to everything that we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, right? I mean, just the landscape is completely different. The type of competition is different. I mean, when I started, the first report I submitted was early 2019.
Yeah.
Bug hunting wasn't a thing back then. Shoot, how many conversations I have with somebody at Rapid 7 that I told them about, like, what are you talking about bug bounty hunting?
Yeah.
I mean, it really wasn't known at all back then. At least not very, very pervasive. So, I mean, it was just easy. There was less competition. There was also less programs. The whole thing was just less mature. So, I mean, it's a lot more mature. It's a lot more established. There's, different programs, but I don't know. I mean, the same challenges are there. It's just different strategies, and it all goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that the tech landscape is different. The challenges that companies are facing are different. Mm-hmm. And it's really just the same thing applies here that applies with really anything that you're doing, where you're trying to create something out of nothing is the wrong way to say it, but where there's not a clear guide, mm-hmm. And it's you just kind of get into the environment. You try to assess it as best you can. You try things out. You see what works. You see what doesn't. You make adjustments. You continue moving forward. So it's very similar to starting a business. Really, I learned a lot, I think, doing bug bounties that I'm now applying to starting this business, where it's like, okay, that technique didn't work. Okay, I got an NA on that report. Won't submit that report again. But yeah, I mean, overall, I definitely wouldn't say it's easy. It's almost easier. And maybe that's just because I've been doing, probably because I've been doing it so long, I have the knowledge and everything, but there's definitely more guidance.
Yeah.
You have a better idea of where to start and where to go. When I got started, when Jason Haddox's recon methodology came out, I was throwing a little, I was like, well, they're just telling everybody this, and I'm breaking every word down and then trying to code it in Python. I'm like, this is incredible. But yeah, that type of stuff didn't exist back then. It was all just like trial and error and the Web Application Hackers Handbook, right? Everybody had that.
Yeah.
Right here. Everybody had this book, and, mine's still water damaged and has a bunch of tab stuff. So I read it over and over again. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah. It's the amount of resources that are available nowadays. That's a game changer. Being able to vibe code with Claude, even though I will say, like, the last two sessions that I did, one little change that I made was instead of kind of conversing with an LLM while I was doing it, I would just log what I was doing in Notion, and just take a note. And then when I came up against a problem where I needed a little help, then I would kind of like lean over to AI. That said, though, what I'd already done was I'd already used Claude to kind of like vibe code a client-side analysis tool that just tried to pick out roles and endpoints and other interesting things from JavaScript and it just hooked into the Kaido API and pulled it out from, kind of the crawling that I've been doing from that. And that gave me some good pointers where I wasn't necessarily relying on it. So, it did something that I don't know that I would have even taken on by myself, and actually yielded some good results with it. But, it's, I'm still trying to kind of figure out exactly what, what role that tool is going to play in my stack. And I think it's probably just going to vary from, kind of test to test, engagement to engagement. I think the more comfortable I am with something, the less likely that I am to kind of call on it. I will say too, that one thing that's been really helpful is, like, a lot of times when I frame up a question to it, I don't just ask it a question about web app security. I ask it to reference, like, hack tricks, or, a specific report off a Medium, or, like just kind of other things that are out there. And if it can't reference it, then I'll just go kind of like grab the page real quick and then upload it, because I don't want it necessarily relying on sort of like just the LLM sort of training. I want to point it towards something specific so that it can give me the outcome it needs. One thing I feel like learned about AI, and I'd be curious to hear your take on this, is like, I feel like if I can feed it the big data set that's got the answers I need, it's good at finding those. But if I ask it for the answers, it just gives me watered down BS.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. LLMs, what they fundamentally do well is they convert unstructured data to structured data. And so if you go in with that mindset, it can be very valuable. If you go into it and look to ask LLMs like ChatGPT whether or not you should submit a report, you're going to get a lot of NAs, because it's going to tell you to submit the report every single time. And I put one up in the Discord, because and actually this is a good way to use LLMs for bug bounties. Argue with it about why you should not submit the report. And that's going to get you a lot better. Like, you're going to anticipate the challenges that you're going to get and everything. But yeah, there was a great conversation I put up there where I was looking at an OAuth thing, and we had gone through this whole thing, and it was like, well, even though, this is like, I definitely think you should submit this, and it's a clear, vulnerability and this and that. And I said, I don't think there's enough impact here to do it. And he said, I'm going to be straight with you. You're correct. There's not enough impact. You shouldn't submit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing, man?
I had the same experience with Claude last week, where it's like, do you want me to write up a vuln report for the fact that you found that localhost 9090 was an acceptable, like one of the kind of accepted kind of like cross domains?
Sure, and the content security policy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, no.
Yeah. That's where people get into trouble, though, right? People that are beginning, they rely on that. And exactly. Don't ever let an AI system tell you to submit a report. If it tells you to submit a report, assume you don't have to submit it.
Basically, I mean, and I can also say from the day gig that, like, there's been mixed opinions about about the value that some of the web app hacking AI stuff is put out there. And there are definitely folks that are tired of receiving AI slop reports, Oh
yeah.
So I think that's it's just a more, eloquently worded beg bounty in certain cases. I like that. I'm stealing that term from you. I'm guessing you didn't coin it, but if you did, trademark it.
No. That's an established term. The beg bounties have gone from, it used to be like they would basically copy and paste an entire OWASP article, and it would just be like, I got a couple verbatim, and now it's just AI slop, and you can see there's like M dashes throughout the entire thing, and it all boils down to, like, you have a content security policy, and that makes your website vulnerable because of this, and you should remove your content security policy. It's like, all right, that's 5 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back.
Yeah. So, it's amazing what computers can do. It's equally amazing sometimes what they absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here. That's why we still need humans, at least in the short term. We do welcome our benevolent overlords if you're watching. I
do not welcome my benevolent tech overlords. I will fight tooth and nail to let that happen. You will find me somewhere where technology cannot get me. I'll be on an island somewhere eating coconuts and crabs.
Well, the next item I had on the agenda was to pitch you on my new company, Skynet, but I guess we'll just go ahead and clear that one off.
I mean, it's an investment opportunity. I can get behind that. But
Okay, fair. Yep. Oh man, this has been absolutely great. I'm so glad you had an awesome week off. I'm so glad you're back. So again, I think that the thing we want to if there was a theme to today, I think it sounds like it's probably being able to be a human and have some soft skills, and that's what's going to set you apart in a world of both other humans and computers kind of vying for the same thing. So.
Yep. And that's true. That's very true. Yeah, we are in competition with these AI systems.
All right. So for the lightning round today, Harrison, the lightning round is just going to be, let's remind everybody who stuck around this long what they need to go do to win a ticket to the February 21st Bug Bounty Workshop. That's going to be live virtual and is going to set you up to really, I would say it's probably going to help fast track whatever your goals are with Bug Bounty, just kind of as a surge session and just getting to learn a whole bunch that you'll take away. And I know that I'm going to just be using those a ton. So how do they win?
Yep. So once again, go to the Discord. Link will be down in the description. We have the new Bug Bounty Tips Forum channel, and you can leave as many tips as you want. And after the contest is done, in probably about a week and a half from when this comes out, I'm going to read through every single last one of those that are posted, and I will find the 5 that I believe are the most helpful for the community, and those individuals are going to win a ticket. If you already have a ticket, then again, you're going to win a 2-hour private live tutoring session with me following the workshop, where we can dig into exactly what you want to know with it. And heck, if you win 2 or 3 times, we'll talk about that, right? If somebody's got square, but probably not going to happen. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. This workshop, the material there, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think it had a unique value. I mean, that's just right. Like if I felt like I was just putting out the same stuff that's already out there in the community, I would be focusing my time on something else. I really do believe that this, especially with the hunting strategies and everything, is going to have a unique perspective. I've been helping and working with beginners for years now. My YouTube channel is over 3 years now. And before that, I was doing stuff as well. I've trained to build an entire application security team. I've talked to a lot of people that are beginning their journey. Yep. And I've gotten to the point where when they come and tell me what the problem is, I can typically tell them exactly what they're doing. And it's so I have taken all of that knowledge and experience from talking to these beginners and getting their experiences over the past years. Yeah. And I've built this to solve the problems that I'm seeing. So I really do believe in it. I really do believe that it's going to help a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, man. Well, I am too. I can't wait. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for another episode, the second episode of What You've Been Up To. Thanks for sticking around. And if you stuck around this long, again, if you got feedback for us, the best way to give us that feedback is in the Discord server. We'd also love your comments. We'd love the likes. We'd love the subscribes. If you don't like what you saw, make sure you talk about it on Reddit or X. Either one of those are perfect forums for negative feedback. But with that, I think we are good, and we're going to go ahead and say over and out.
I like it. And by the way, all that negative feedback, we're just going to say thank you right back to it.
That's right. That's what the X bot that we're going to build is going to do. It's just going to say in Reddit and X, thank you, thank you, yeah. Thank you, thank you.
I love it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
To the club in the